What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from Mtg. We like magic, and today we got some Friday Dominaria spoilers. We haven't seen too much today yet, at least. I get the feeling they might try to sneak more out before the day is over, but I'm going to go ahead and give you what we got for now. We got some new art, as usual, and we got some brand new stuff that's pretty exciting, so let's get to it. Well, the first thing I want to look at, as usual, is some of the new art that we got to see, starting with Primeval's Glorious Rebirth and the Antiquities War. I'm not super impressed with either of these art pieces, to be honest with you, and I'm not really impressed with at least half of these cards. Primeval's Glorious Rebirth, I do still think costs an awful lot of mana and multiple turns worth of investment in setting up, more than likely, so it's really going to have to prove itself to me. I'm just not really sure how good the card is, but we are seeing as this set, as we see more and more of this set, we're getting a lot of cards that make it easy to produce lots and lots of mana. And you'll see a couple in this video that do that. So I wouldn't put it past maybe this seeing some play, but I highly doubt it, especially considering it doesn't stack up very well to some of the other things we could be doing in the format. So I'm not sure about Primeval's Glorious Rebirth at all, but I do think the Antiquities War actually has a chance. This is really good card selection. You're digging 10 cards by the time it's all over here. And if you build your deck right, you should, then you'll get card advantage by the end of the day here too. You'll get 2 cards for the price of your 1 card. And then by the time you get that 3rd lore counter, if you just have a few artifacts out, you can alpha strike pretty easily. I mean, it only takes 4 artifacts to do 20 damage. Obviously, you'll probably have to fight through a couple of creatures, but I really don't see it being too hard to create a board full of artifacts in this format at all. So I actually kind of like this card. Like, one of the only things that'll answer it once it does go off is Settle the Wreckage. And there's really not much else. There's not a whole lot of main deck enchantment hate in the format right now, other than like Cast Out and Ixalan's Binding. But other than that, that's more or less it. So I actually think that this could have a shot. It's really tough to remove. Get your card advantage, amazing card selection, and the possibility for an alpha strike too. I like a lot about this card. It does a lot of things for just 1 card. We also got to see art for Tetsuko Yumezawa, Fugitive, and Marwyn the Nurturer today. Both of these cards I like an awful lot, and I've made no secret that I like Tetsuko. I talked a lot about him in the leak video where I covered him, and I've still got a lot to say about him. This makes a ton of stuff unblockable, and it's yet another thing that sort of enables Combat Celebrant out of Dominaria. We've seen like 3 different cards that do that. This is really good with Combat Celebrant. Just remember, it's not just creatures with power of 1. It's also creatures toughness 1. And that's really important with stuff like Glint-Sleeve Siphoner that you want to get through. It lets your Champion of Woods through. It lets all of your white 1-drops through. There's just so much that a Tetsuko can do for you. I really like this card a lot. And it also helps, by the way, now that we've seen the art, that this looks more or less exactly like Shinsuke Nakamura to me. Now, Marwyn looks really cool, too. I really like the flavor here. According to the flavor text, she's a midwife, so it makes sense that every time an elf comes into play, she gets a little stronger. Super cute flavor, see what you did there, but I actually think this could be the backbone of a relatively important elves deck somewhere along the line in Standard. If it doesn't happen right away, which might not, it's not like we have a critical mass of elves. There's not a high density of those right now, but we do have Core Set coming out after Dominaria, and we'll very likely see elves there. So I could see Marwyn actually being a really important card somewhere down the line. It is not hard to make her huge, and sort of, building your own sort of Priest of Titania that gets bigger and bigger. It's not exactly Priest. There's a bunch of stuff that's different about it, but it sort of reminds me of Priest of Titania, and, that a huge Priest of Titania at that. Priest of Titania didn't have the ability to be like a 6/6. And this definitely does. So I like Marwyn. I think it might even be a fun commander. And if you're not going to make it your commander, it'd be great in the 99 somewhere in an Elves deck. But we actually didn't see that much today in the way of new art. So we can finish up the new art cards by going over all the enemy-colored check lands that are now confirmed to be in the set. We saw these in the leak, but it's good to actually have real confirmation. These are in the set. These really needed a price drop. They were going for over $10 a pop, sometimes $15 or more, depending on which one you wanted. But all the pre-order prices I've seen on these, none of them were higher than $6. And many of them are about $5 or $5.50. So that's a great price check. We absolutely needed that. So it's great to see these back. But there are things I should talk about while we're talking about these lands. For what it's worth, all of the art is absolutely beautiful, and Cliptop Retreat sort of reminds me of where Steven and the Gems live in Steven Universe. That looks like the Gem Temple to me. But aside from that, like Sulphur Falls is a beautiful piece of art, as is Hinterland Harbor. I'm not saying that Chapel and Cemetery look bad. They look pretty awesome, but Falls and Harbor look insanely good to me. But as far as their actual like playability and standard, obviously these are playable in standard. Green's especially looking good right now. And not only does it get Llanowar Elves, but it's going to be really easy to go, turn 1 Forest, Llanowar Elves, into turn 2, untapped black or blue swords, because we have Cemetery and Harbor in the format. Sultai's looking really nice for that reason, but, all of the decks, all of the 3-color wedges from Khan's block, they all needed sort of a leg up in the mana department. And there are already good decks that play those colors. Temur. One of the big heartaches with Temur losing Attune with Ether is because Attune with Ether was such an amazing mana fixer for it. But this makes their mana base a lot more consistent, just having these lands in the format. So Temur might experience a slight uptick in play again, as its mana is more consistent. So that's a possibility. Same thing with Mardu. Mardu really needs consistent, fast starts as a deck. That's one of its biggest downfalls. It can draw its nut draw that can kill you in a few turns. But if the mana's not right, it just can't really do much with it. And obviously, this will help out Mardu too. Although I should point out that for fast decks, last thing I want to say here, for fast decks, I obviously can't in the Mardu aggro deck go like turn 1 Concealed Courtyard into turn 2 Isolated Chapel and have my Isolated Chapel come into play untapped, which is true of any, turn 1 fast land into turn 2 check land. So that does put sort of an important check on how fast you can go with these lands, but I still think that it'll make decks like Mardu and Temur a little bit more consistent, and that'll make all the difference. But we got some new stuff right here on the horizon. Get hyped for that. First of all, here's Blessed Light. It's 5 mana, 4 and a white for an instant. Exile target creature or enchantment. Now, I think this is going to be really, really good in Limited. So it's going to do a lot there. It can exile sagas. Great, safety valve on those. And obviously creatures. Exiling those at instant speed is great. I think 5 mana is a decent rate in Limited. But in Standard, things like Cast Out and Binding just do this already. So I'm just not sure that it's going to see Standard play unless you really need a super insanely budget piece to take out Hazarets and Scarab Gods and stuff. But I just don't think we need to go that far. Cast Out and Binding are they're much better options. Now, I want to briefly hit on a card that I missed from yesterday. This is Daring Archeologist, and I actually think it's pretty good. It's 4 mana, 3 and white for a 3/3 Human Artificer. When Daring Archeologist enters the battlefield, you may return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Whenever you cast a historic spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Daring Archeologist. Indiana Jones, that's what I want this thing's nickname to be, but in any case, this actually looks kind of fantastic. Note the subtle difference in wording between abilities. When it comes into play, it's a treasure hunter. It gets specifically an artifact from your graveyard, puts it into your hand. But whenever you cast a historic spell, so artifacts, legendaries of any kind, and obviously sagas too, will all put counters on this. I actually think this might be standard playable for realsies. You get some card advantage on enter the battlefield with it. That's a really good enter the battlefield trigger. A form of pseudo card advantage, at least. It replaces itself by getting you a card on ETB, so even if they kill it, you got some value out of it. That can be really good. So I like that about it, and I don't think it'll be super hard to set up putting an artifact in the graveyard. There's plenty of stuff we can do as far as that's concerned. And its second ability is actually not bad either, because once you cast the artifact you got out of your graveyard with it, it's a 4/4, so it passes a vanilla test, 4 mana, 4/4. That's fine. You actually got good value out of this. You cast for 4 mana, you'll end up with a 4/4 that got you a card that got abraded earlier or something. We keep saying that all these awesome artifacts look great, but abrade's in the format, people play in the main deck, so ho-hum. But this is a great sort of anti-abrade tool you can play in your main deck and get some real value out of. And once you play any historic spell other than just the one you got out of your graveyard, this becomes a 5/5. You can get it even bigger than that as the game goes on. If this gets to a 6/6, you've gotten all the value you could ever want out of it. So I actually think this card might be a sleeper. It provides immediate value the turn it enters the battlefield, even if it gets killed. It's gotten value for you. I like cards that do that. A lot of spikes do, and it can get much bigger than, it should, considering what you put into its casting cost. So look out for this. It's on my radar. I actually think this is a fantastic card in a lot of ways. But the last 3 cards we've seen so far today, at least, are all black cards, and they all look kind of awesome. First up, here's Rite of Bells Unlock, brand new saga that we didn't see during the leak. This is 4 mana, 2 and 2 black. And it's an enchantment, obviously. And when it gets its first and second lore counters, you create 2/0/1 black cleric creature tokens. And when it gets its third lore counter, you create a 6/6 black demon creature token with flying, trample, and at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice another creature. If you don't, this creature deals 6 to you. There's actually a ton of stuff I really like about this card. Right when it hits the battlefield, you immediately get 2 blockers. I think that's cool, and decks that play like, the Hidden Stockpile and Anointed Procession deck, this looks like a really valuable tool for those decks. I know they're really pushing it on 4-drops. Obviously, they play Anointed Procession, they play Vraska's Contempt. Sometimes they'll play Cast Out instead, or on top of Contempt, so there's a lot of 4-drops in this deck. I don't know that they want to play this, but a 1 or 2 of could be a possibility, especially with Procession out. This gives you like 8 creatures in total before it's all said and done. Actually, 10. 10 creatures in total because you'll get 2 of the 6/6 flyers, which could definitely be a way to end the game, regardless of whether or not you have your Procession out. That's definitely a good way to end the game. So I actually kind of like this. Unlike things like Lord of the Pit, things that it's calling back to, it doesn't tap when it does the damage to you. So depending on what situation you're in, even if you don't sacrifice another creature, yeah, you'll take 6. But if your opponent's at less life than you, you'll just fly over with 6/6 Flample guy, your flying trample guy, and maybe get in for 6 damage. So even if you have to take the damage, sometimes you'll be at more than parity with your opponent's life total. You won't mind that much. And obviously, like, Aristocrats decks are going to really like a card that, gives them a sacrifice outlet eventually and a bunch of creatures to sacrifice, for a Linda or your Henny or whatever you're trying to do. So I actually think this is really neat, and it might be fringe playable in like 2 or 3 different weird lists right now, and that's awesome. Great tool for them, gives them blockers, gives them sack fodder, and gives them a way to end the game late too. So look out. I actually think this might be cool too. Well, up next, here's Cabal Stronghold. It's a rare land. You tap for a colorless, or you can pay 3 and tap it to add a black to your pool for each basic swamp you control. Urborg reference in the flavor text. No Urborg in the set. At least that we know of. That would be crazy. God, that would be really crazy. But in any case, first of all, note a few things about this card. It is not Cabal Coffers, although I am a little bit more up on it than I've seen a lot of people be. If you head over to Spikes, everyone hates this card. But they make some good points. This is more or less completely mana negative until like turn 5 at the very least. And then you have to have nothing but basic swamps and you have to have played a land every single turn up to there. So it's just, that's tough. This isn't going to produce all the mana for you until the very late game, and that sort of defeats the purpose of a card like this. But I will say, I still think it's going to see at least like 1 or 2 of play in mono black decks. And there are reasons to play mono black, There's already these sort of Masterminds acquisition decks that are maybe important and do get some new cards from this set. So I think that acquisition is going to get even better and maybe be a real deck. So there's at least that to point out, but Mono Black's got a lot going for it right now, and this could definitely be a good piece. Again, I said earlier, there's a bunch of cards in the set that cost a buttload of mana, but this is another one of those pieces that helps you create all that mana, especially once you get to the late game. So once you do have like 6 or 7 basic swamps out, which will take forever, yes, but once you do, this actually seems like it can be really good. And do note, I should point this out, because I think people are missing this. It taps for colorless mana, so it's fine. It'll always be at least fine. It doesn't enter the battlefield tap, produces mana for you the turn it comes out, at least produces some mana. So in a mono black deck, you'll probably have oodles of other black sources. And I don't think this necessarily puts you off of playing like Field of Ruin, because Field of Ruin searches up swamps for you. Look at that. So I don't think that this means that you have to play nothing but swamps. There's definitely, Field of Ruin lets you get swamps. I think you can still play it at least. So I do like the card. I don't think it'll see more than 1 or 2 of play in some decks, but in acquisition decks and other mono black decks, I think it definitely sees at least 1 of play. It just doesn't matter, of course. It makes sense. And obviously we have like Torment of Hellfire and Cut to Ribbons in the format. So cards like this look a little bit better in that situation. So not only do we have those cards, by the way, but we have the last card we're going to look at today, which is a card that I think it's kind of really hype about. So let's take a look. Here's Josu Vess. Note the last name, son. Lich Knight. This is Liliana's brother. Yes, the one she killed. It's apparently brought back by Bells and Lock. That's what I've gathered. But in any case, 4 mana, 2 and 2 black for a 4/5 legendary zombie knight, cool creature type, with kicker 6. That's 5 and a black. It's got menace. And when Josu Vess Lich Knight enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, create 8 2/2 black zombie knight creature tokens with menace. So this is where you use all that mana. You know, it's 10 mana to kick this into play, at which point you get 9 creatures, 20 total power, and it takes 18 guys to block them all. Like, this is how you win a game. You force a sweeper on them or you win the game. But if you do get it on turn 4, it's a 4/5 with menace. It's at least a decent body. Can't be killed by Chandra's, kill creature's ability. Can't be, hit by Glorybringer and killed. Can't be hit by most red removal, for that matter. Just Hour of Devastation kills it. There's a lot of good things about 5 toughness in this format. So there's actually some things I really like about this card. So, I mean, those are the 4 mana 4/5 argument. That's all the same stuff we said about Ripjaw Raptor. And it's all sparing play so far. Still got like more than a year in standard. We'll probably see play eventually, but in any case, Ripjaw Raptor hasn't proven to be incredible yet. And it's got the same stats with the same CMC. So I'm not sure that's the best argument in the world, but I will say the great argument for this card is that when you do top deck and super late, you win. You just win. And that might make it playable. But that is all the spoilers for now. I keep reloading Mythic Spoiler because I just assume that any second now there's going to be more. So keep up with the channel. Keep checking in here, Make sure you check your notifications and all that, because if there's another, few spoilers tonight, I'm going to try to go ahead and kick them out. So you can see those after you get out of, F&M or whatever. So make sure you keep checking in. I might be back tonight. But in any case, make sure you like the video if you did like the video, and check out my sponsor, TCG Player. The good folks over there at Keycog Player. They're a pretty good pre-order price guide for Dominaria right now. If you want a barometer on sort of where we are in terms of these prices, you can go over there and check out prices, or just pre-order stuff if you want to speculate. It's fun to speculate. If you know a card's going to be good but no one else is seeing it, might be a good time to get on that, Jack. So go over, hit the first link in the description, check out TCG Player. But there's other stuff you can do if you want to do it. You can follow me on Twitter at SBMTGDev, or you can throw me $1 a month, just one of your dollars, every month to help out on Patreon. Keep the lights on. I literally couldn't do this without the support of the people from Patreon. So if you want to become one of those and help out the channel, kick me $1. It'll mean a lot. So I'll leave a link in the description for that too. But for now, pretty sure I'm tapped out. Catch you cats later. I'm Dev from The Place. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Spread love and be kind.